Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Homeowners insurance increasing or deductible too high? Call, click, or come in. Save a Dave. Dave Miette Insurance Agency.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover the Saints, Tulane, LSU, Pelicans, all on tap today. And of course, to break it down for us live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios, Doug Mouton, Sports Director over at WLAE-TV. We were just reminiscing about Super Bowls of the past, Len Dawson, Super Bowls here in New Orleans. And well, first of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. And we're talking and then you say 15 seconds.
Right.
Like, oh, I guess it's time to be quiet
Yeah,
now.
no doubt.
Okay.
Before we get started, tell us about all the great programming at Channel 4. Got high school coming up.
Yeah, our first Fourth Down Friday is Labor Day weekend. That Friday, I think it's September 2nd. And we do Fourth Down on 4 every Sunday night, which has been largely Saints during training camp. A lot of LSU coverage, and that's ramping up. We have an LSU preseason special coming up on Thursday the 1st, before the opener against Florida State. We're kind of working on that right now. Football season is fun, and we're all over the place.
And of course, you just spent some time up in Green Bay. We'll get into that in a moment. But we were talking about Super Bowls of the past here, and of course the passing of Len Dawson.
Yeah, Len Dawson died yesterday. Great quarterback, but maybe a better 50 years as a TV broadcaster. Began the HBO NFL show, which has been, a landmark thing.
No doubt.
I mean, for people in our generation, it was, the best thing on TV for about a decade. We were talking about that Super Bowl at Tulane Stadium. We, at that time, the Mouton family lived on Willow Street. My dad, the day of the Super Bowl was noon, at that Super Bowl 4, my dad woke up me and my brother Jerry and said, you guys want to go see Johnny Robinson play? Because my dad had been at LSU with Johnny Robinson when they won the national championship. And I said, you mean the Super Bowl? And my dad said, yeah. It was like 10 in the morning. And I said, yeah. So we got dressed. We walked out. It was a rainy morning. We bought tickets on the street and went to the Super Bowl. Obviously, my first Super Bowl, first one in New Orleans. Went to the Super Bowl in Tulane Stadium. We were in the corner of the end zone, top row of Tulane Stadium. And when Otis Taylor caught the fourth quarter touchdown that put the game on ice and sent everyone into hysterics, that was the end zone corner we were sitting in. And then Johnny Robinson had an interception in the fourth quarter. My dad went nuts. It was a great day. And I've always, that Kansas City Chiefs team has always had a place for me. Because, again, first Super Bowl in New Orleans, my first Super Bowl. It was a great experience with my dad and my brother. I've always remembered that. It's one of my earliest vivid childhood memories that I'll never forget is
Hank
Super Bowl
Stram
IV.
mic'd up, keep matriculating down the field.
I actually watched that yesterday when Len Dawson died because I was looking for some video of Len Dawson, and I watched it yesterday. Yeah, matriculate, still one of the great words, and Hank Stram's funny and ridiculous, and that team was unbelievably good. And anyway, so
first of many, and of course it really made us kind of the go-to city.
It really did.
For the Super Bowl.
That game established New Orleans as a, you know what, they can do these big-time events and do them really well. That game was really a landmark in a lot of ways for the city of New Orleans.
And the owners back then loved coming to New Orleans. Again, the food, obviously, again, the fun,
the proximity,
everything,
everything,
and
everything.
It really, again. How many NFL meetings did we have back then? It was every chance they got to come to New Orleans, they came to New Orleans.
Yeah, like we know how to take people out and show them a good time, like few people do.
No doubt
we're good at that.
Yeah, that's something we're very good at.
That's in our wheelhouse.
No doubt. Hey, let's first of all talk some Saints. You were in Green Bay. You stayed the entire time. You and I were talking before we aired. I've always been one to, and I've said on this show, on the radio show as well, 2 preseason games, 2 control scrimmages, 1 home, 1 away. I think that's the way to go. And you saw the work they did last week. Talk a bit about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not sure preseason games, I guess they do have value for making your 53-man roster, for deciding if Dejon Dixon, if you want to have him on the practice squad, because there's only so much you can see without being in an actual game, especially for a running back or, a lot of things. Look, football is about tackling, blocking and tackling.
It's a physical game.
And it's a physical game, and the only way you fully get to see that. But do you really need to see Alvin Kamara in a preseason game? The correct answer is no. You do not. So the controlled scrimmage, the biggest difference is guys now, because of the way they have been practicing this way for a few years now. So everybody in the NFL now doesn't know any other way. They don't know the way you and I practiced football 40 years ago. They don't even know 10 years ago. They only know in their experience with football practices. So, for instance, Green Bay can send Aaron Rodgers out with the first-team offense with the red jersey on, and every defensive lineman knows what that means. Nobody on the Saints is going to hit Aaron Rodgers. They don't. There's nobody who's going to try to be over-aggressive and show off, because if they ever were that way, they were called out for it in college. You know what I mean? Like they have been trained to act the right way. So they run through the quarterback, not through him, but past him, and they get credit for the sack in the evaluation process. But Green Bay can send out Aaron Rodgers under the full understanding that no one's touching him, and that's what you need. The one thing you don't want to do is lose Aaron Rodgers in preseason if you're Green Bay. And I'm using Aaron Rodgers as an example because he's a perfect example. But you can play him in a controlled scrimmage. That controlled scrimmage, they were able to learn so much more and do so much more, and they could use their wide receivers more because the Saints were playing their real defense, but they could also do it and know that Aaron Rodgers was going to walk away. And in a preseason game, there is full tackling, and you can't guarantee that, which is why Aaron Rodgers will not go near the field in a preseason game. And that's why I would argue Saints played 2 starters of their 22 in preseason game number 2. That was Adam Troutman, who I think's had a really good camp, but still needs work, and Cesar Ruiz.
Both guys that needed work,
who needs work, So there were fundamental reasons why you wanted those 2 to play. But you know where the other 20 guys were? They were sitting on the sidelines watching.
With caps on.
With caps on, and that's what it should be, because DeMario Davis doesn't need a preseason. Marshawn Lattimore doesn't need the preseason game. And putting those guys at risk doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. But there was a balance there, okay? I mean, again, we've talked about it, hardening your body, getting live game reps versus possible injury. Just the synchronization.
I get it.
Especially like offensive line. Again, the receiver, quarterback. I get all that. But that's why we see the first 4 games of the season now, where teams are just kind of, they're getting up to speed. They're a little bit rusty early.
I would agree with that, but also, everybody's equal. You're not playing from a deficit. You're playing equal to everybody else. So nobody has an advantage over anyone. Yes, I would agree that that's true. The football gets better as you go in the season. I'm not sure preseason would fix that part. But either way, when the Saints go to Atlanta, they will not be in at a disadvantage, even if no starters play.
And the other good thing about the joint practices is, look, if you're a smart football player and you playing against the guy across from you, even if the guy is new, it only takes a few practice for you to understand strengths, weaknesses, how you can beat that guy.
No doubt.
So practice against your own team in camp can be a little bit of fool's gold.
It can be.
Okay.
It can, depending on who you're working against.
Right.
Yeah, you're working against Cam Jordan.
Right.
I mean, it works both ways.
Sure.
You're working against Cam Jordan and you get beat 6 out of 7 times. That doesn't mean you're terrible.
No.
It means that's Cam Jordan.
Right.
And by the same token, and yes, you have to take all that into consideration, which is why you also see different guys rotating in with the first team and the second team. In the course of camp, you'll see Trevor Penning not just against the backup defensive end. You'll see him against Cam Jordan. They'll give him but you'll also see him against the undrafted free agents. And obviously you can see a difference. And look, Trevor Penning's a great example because you can see how much better he got in preseason
That's what I was going to go next.
than preseason game 1. There's a clear value for a lot of guys, but there's also not a clear value for a lot of guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Talk about Penning, because I agree with you. He got better from Houston to Green Bay. We expected to get better every week. Again, just getting used to the speed of the game when you talk about the NFL. He's got the skill set. You could see it. He's maybe not the best pass protector right now, but that will come. I always thought that he would really work well as that third tackle on the heavy package, coming in like Streif did, like so many did, just to get acclimated to the game. Unless you got to put him in there because of Hurst. We're hoping that Hurst is going to be back.
Yeah, Hurst will be back.
But talk about his maturation process.
Yeah, look, and you can see it. First of all, he's a phenomenal athlete for a human his size. And there's a reason he went in the first round, and it's the stopwatch time. Look, it's what he did on the field at Northern Iowa, sure. He's a mauler, but it's also the stopwatch time and the strength and the speed is otherworldly. Like, he's got all of that, and it's a package that you can work with. Look, to me, it looked like in the first preseason game he's overthinking it, and you can almost see him thinking and not reacting, and it's a common thing. As you get more comfortable doing it, you do less thinking and more reacting, and you could see it in game 2. He's still a long way from being there. I think if you had to play him, you could disguise it and you could, chip on that side or give him help, and you'd be okay. I think you'll be better in week 1 with James Hurst. I do think Penning's going to be a starter in the not too distant future. And look, James Hurst is a good player. Does he have Penning's upside? Absolutely not. James Hurst, I don't think, is ever going to be a Pro Bowl player, but he's a good player.
He's a jack of all trades.
And he's a jack of all trades. So if you have any injuries or any problems across the offensive line, the hope is you can get through a couple of weeks with all those guys healthy. Then if someone does get hurt by week 3 or 4, then you're ready to move Hurst and play Penning. But you got 6 solid, and I'll say this too, Calvin Throckmorton is a good player too.
I agree with that.
He's maybe a notch below Hurst, but Throckmorton's a good player. So you're starting the season set pretty good 7 strong on the offensive line, which is I like. You just got to keep those guys healthy.
Your thoughts on Nick Martin?
Nick Martin's a good player. I think he'll be around. And Landon Young, too. Just guys that need work. I
don't think they're giving up on Young by any stretch.
Oh, no. And I think Young's a lot of the same things as Penning just a year later. Now, he doesn't have Penning's upside, but look, I like, and that's probably the 9 that you just mentioned that they keep. I like the 9. I like the group. You just got to keep them healthy. I mean, last year.
Well, that's just the big deal.
The only offensive lineman to play 17 games last year of your starting 5 was Cesar Ruiz, who was probably your weakest last year.
And I played 2 positions.
And he's your weakest guy's the one. And then James Hurst played the second most snaps on the offensive line, and Calvin Throckmorton was 3rd. I mean, you had Ramczyk and Armstead. Andres Pete played 6 games. Like, you got to have those guys.
Well, we've heard Dennis Allen say again that the lack of OTAs over the last 2 years with COVID, and then, of course, Peyton deciding not to have it last year, really hurt guys like Troutman and Ruiz. Those are the 2 guys that really have to step up this year.
I think Ruiz has had a good camp, and I see significant improvement. He's going to be first-round draft pick quality, I don't know. But Ruiz is one of the guys that I think I have seen the most progress from. Troutman's another one. Troutman, I think, has had a quietly good camp. But I think Ruiz has had a solid camp, and he's going to be a good player. Be a much better player than he was.
That's an interesting position cut, too, because Juwan Johnson has come on. He's played well. Obviously, again, you're going to have Taysom as be a jack of all trades, but he's going to be a tight end. Troutman's your starter. Fournette is your best blocking tight end. Do you go with 4 tight ends? Do you take a chance on cutting a Fournette and allowing him to the practice squad?
No, I think you keep 4 tight ends because I actually think there's roles for all 4 of the. I mean, I think of the 53-man roster, who's actually playing, who's getting time in a game. And I think there are roles for all four of those guys in a normal offensive package. Troutman is the most complete tight end in the sense that he's a good blocker, still getting there as a route runner and a receiver, but he's a good blocker. Fournette is a pure blocker. Johnson is a pure receiver. And I think you keep Taysom Hill as the jack of all trades, but also he's sort of the third quarterback when you do your 53.
I agree with that.
I don't think you keep Ian Book and maybe bring Book back on the practice squad if you've seen enough to do that. I don't think Book makes the 53, but I do think 4 tight ends are on the 53.
I'm with you. I think they go with 2. Emergency quarterback is Taysom. Do you think Ian's done enough to make the practice squad, or is that because look, that guy runs the scout team, so he's got to be mobile, but he's got to be able to be again emulate guys that can drop back. You could go get another young quarterback and put him in that position.
That's a good question. I will say this. Ian Book, when you meet him and talk to him, he's an impressive young man. He's smart. He gets it. He's easy to talk to. All those things matter in a practice, in a scout team guy. Like and he got 16 on there. Like the NFL has this massive practice squad now. So I'm not married to that opinion, but I do think they bring. He's a likable guy, and I think for a scout team quarterback that will do everything you ask of, and he's that guy. So I think, my guess is yes, unless they see it. Look, they got Taysom Hill after final cuts from Green Bay. If they got their eye on a guy that's out there, and another team is trying to sneak him to their practice squad, maybe they go get that guy. But my guess is yes, but you're right. It could be somebody. They're going to have a quarterback on the practice squad. You got to. Maybe 2.
Right, because you don't want Taysom doing that. You want Taysom concentrating.
You definitely don't want Taysom
on what he needs to do.
Correct.
I get it all the time. I knew you get it all the time. Kurt Merrick, Deshaun Dixon. What are the chances of those guys making this team?
I think Kurt Merritt's got a better shot. I think he's done more. You can see that now the Saints are working him out at running back. They're trying to find a way to keep him. I absolutely think Kurt Merritt is a practice squad guy. I've done a couple of mock 53s. I haven't published them, but just for myself. And I don't see the only way he makes a 53 is if you decide to cut Traquan Smith.
I agree.
That's the only way. Traquan Smith's your best blocking wide receiver. Traquan Smith is like Devery Henderson special as a blocker. And there is use for that in a game.
Absolutely.
There are packages that is incredibly
We've seen
useful.
Big plays because of that.
Because of him on the outsides, no doubt, in screen situations, in goal line situations. So, but I absolutely think Kurt Merritt's not going anywhere because now you saw what he did in kickoff returns. Like, he might be your backup kick returner. Deontay Hardy goes down, and look, as small as he is, it's hard to think he's going to make it 17 games. Now you got Kurt Merritt, bring him off the practice squad. He's your kick returner. I think Kurt Merritt, Dejon Dixon, 16-man practice squad, he's got a shot. And they like him, and he can emulate a lot of big receivers. He hasn't helped himself on special teams as much as you'd like, so I don't think there's any path for him on the 53. But I do think he could. I think right now it's like a 50-50 shot on him. And Merritt, I would say 95% chance he's around in some capacity.
I had our colleague Sean Bazan on yesterday on the radio show. He said that if this was last year, Dixon makes the final 53.
Yeah, he might. That's a good observation. I don't disagree with that. That wide receiver room was weak. But now Callaway is your. And look, Callaway's a good player. If one of those first 3 can't play, Callaway can do a lot of things out the slot. He's a smart player. He finds holes in zones really effectively. What he can't do is beat the other team's number 1 cornerback. But on this team, all 3 of the first 3 would have to go down. Because either Mike Thomas will get the number 1 cornerback, or Olave, or Jarvis Landry. Callaway will never see that guy. So if Callaway is your 3rd wide receiver in this offense, no matter who 2 of the first 3 are, you're in good shape. Because I think Callaway is a better player than people think.
I think he's a gamer.
I do too. I do too.
He may not be a great guy in power practice, but I think he's a gamer.
I think he's a smart player, and he knows how to find seams. He can't beat a number 1 cornerback. That's why he wasn't drafted.
Exactly.
Doesn't have the stopwatch time.
I agree. When you look at the toughest position cuts, what do you think they are?
Look, linebacker's a place where you got to find guys.
You need depth.
So so maybe it's the easiest position to make the team in the sense that depending on how bad Pete Werner is, and he's the one concerning injury. I think James Hurst will be back any day, and I think Hurst is fine.
How about Michael Thomas?
I think Michael Thomas is going to be fine. I think Michael Thomas and James Hurst are going to be. And
I wanted to ask you about Winston as well.
Oh no, and I think Winston.
All those guys coming off injury.
Winston has run fine. Look, I think they're being extra special, super secret, cautious on all of those guys because they know they need them. But I think all three of those guys are going to be fine. Pete Werner is the one I don't know about.
Right.
So you got to find linebackers. Is it Nefi Sewell or are you playing Eric Wilson? Like you're going to play two.
Sewell looks like a practice squad guy to me, but
probably. I mean, look. The days of playing three linebackers in the NFL is pretty much over.
Right.
You're playing two, and Demario Davis is a spectacular start.
Yes.
Can Caden Ellis be the second guy to play with him? Maybe. I don't think it's Zach Bond. Could it be John Bostic?
Right.
I mean, Eric Wilson might look like the best guy now, but all those guys are a dramatic step down from Pete Werner.
Are they a step down from Quan Alexander as well?
Yeah, look, Quan Alexander, my thinking is no, probably not. Quan Alexander would probably fit in real well right now. I think the money for the salary cap came down to Jarvis Landry or Quan Alexander. Right. And if you have Pete Werner, you don't need Quan Alexander. The problem is they don't have Pete Werner. Whereas Jarvis Landry, you need, period.
It's interesting because, again, he signs for $1.2 million, $152,000 signing bonus. I mean, easily attainable under that salary cap.
I know. And I think if they had realized Pete Werner was going to be dealing with these problems all camp, it would have been a different decision.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree with where you're going.
Well, and look, I think that's going to be one of the positions they're going to be looking at the waiver wire at.
Very possible. Very possible.
With the linebackers. When you look at the offense right now and kind of compare and contrast it to what it was last year with the new weapons.
Yeah, I mean it's dramatically different. And first of all, let me say this: it seems stupid to even say it. Alvin Kamara has had a spectacular camp.
Right.
And I'm not sure this is even possible, but he's looked better than he ever has before.
Really?
No kidding. Alvin Kamara has been ridiculous at camp. No one talks about it because he's the given.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you expect, but even by Kamara's standards, he had one play in Green Bay where he runs this little option route near the pylon where he cuts in and then cuts back out. And when he cut in and cut out, the linebacker that was on him, I mean, he created 12 yards of separation effortlessly, and Andy Dalton hit him, and it was the easiest touchdown. And he has done stuff like that all camp. And Kamara is ridiculous. Well, look, no matter how you slice it, the offense is going to be so much better, even if you take Mike Thomas out of the equation. I think Mike Thomas is
because you can slide Landry into that spot.
Jarvis Landry has been so quietly good. And the thing about Jarvis Landry that is so interesting to watch, he's not as physical as Mike Thomas. He's not as fast as Chris Olave. But when they run one-on-one drills with Jarvis and the cornerback, I can't even always tell what he's doing, but he will make simple moves right off the ball and create 3 yards of separation every play. Every play, no matter who's guarding him. He creates separation at a level that is hard to fathom for a guy who's not big and not fast. Which is why he wasn't a first-round draft pick for all the production.
But he's been very, very productive as a receiver.
He's one of my favorite football players of the last 20 years, period.
Right.
Like one of my favorite at Lutcher, at LSU, and now it couldn't be happier to have him with the Saints. And he creates separation instantly. Chris Olave looks like a pro, one of the most, and that's a thing about the Ohio State guys. Like they're getting NFL coaching in college. And he has come out of college like a veteran. You would never guess he was the rookie. And one of the things he has done well, and we saw this more early in practice before Jameis got hurt and has come back. When Jameis would scramble and roll out, it always seemed to be Olave making the ad-lib move to find himself open, and Jameis hit him. I think he's in football smart and incredibly smooth. Not the most physical guy now, but with the physicality of Mike Thomas
Right.
and Jarvis Landry, he might be the most perfect complement.
Yeah.
Like, so you're talking about the weapons. Those three, I think, are elite level. I think you find ways, you throw out Taysom Hill as a quarterback. I know he wants to be a quarterback,
Right.
but the fact is, at this role, he is elite in the NFL. And here's the thing, it's a $10 million a year role. It's not a $25 million a year role, but at this $10 million a year role, every team in the NFL is looking for a Taysom Hill.
Absolutely.
So you find ways to use Taysom Hill, ways to use Juwan Johnson. That first three at wide receiver, terrific. Then I love Callaway.
Right.
They've run a whole package for Deontay Hardy at training camp. You see jet sweeps, screen passes, unique plays that only he runs. They have a package for him.
Right.
He's going to play on offense. And when he does, he's either going to be a decoy or he's going to get the ball because he's got plays that nobody else runs for him. I think the level of weapons went from a 2. I guess with Kamara, maybe it's a 4. Although your wide receiver room, 32 NFL wide receiver rooms, you were 32nd last
there's no
year.
doubt.
Now Kamara brings you up a notch or
Right.
two, but now that wide receiver room can compete.
Yes. And look, who are you double teaming?
Right. And it's not Kamara,
No.
and it's not Jarvis Landry, and maybe it is Kamara,
Right.
and then it's
on.
Mike Thomas.
I mean,
Whereas last year it was so easy, and we've had several players say that teams overplay Kamara, like way overplay Kamara,
you see it.
and dare Callaway to beat him one-on-one, and he couldn't.
Right. What will be interesting is again, Jameis' ability to be accurate on the mid-level throws, the first and second level.
That's the key.
That will be the key for the game for the season.
Yeah.
And then of course you feel good about the quarterback position because Andy Dalton is
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Andy Dalton is a quality NFL backup. I think if he was your starter and you listed 32 starters, he's maybe the 23rd or 25th best starter in the NFL.
But
better
coming
than
off
some
that
of the
bench.
rookies. Coming off the bench, he's an elite backup, no doubt. Yeah, look, we've seen Jameis in training camp actively throwing more slants, actively throwing more short. All right, here's the thing, and here's how I see Jameis.
Okay.
When you played ball as a kid, do you remember the one kid who was so much better than everybody else and just did things differently?
Yes.
Like, I think that's Jameis. I think Jameis has always grown up being the best player on the field, right? Number 1 high school recruit in America, wins a national championship at Florida State, first player picked in the draft. He's always been better than everyone else. And to me, he has always played like he thinks he's better than everyone else. And what I mean by that is that that's why he extends plays, because he always believes, I'm going to make this play a touchdown, because that's what he always has done in his life.
Plus, he believes in his arm.
And he believes
that he could beat the DB with his arm.
Correct. But extending the play is all in the NFL level. And maybe he was here in Little League, then the talent was here in high school, then here in college. Well, now the talent is as good as him, and you can't. He has to learn how to throw short, how to get rid of the ball, how to do the things that Drew Brees, as a guy who was undersized and a second-round pick, the things that came instantly to him. That's what he was best at, is what Jameis is worst at. And you see him actively working at that. And look, I watch Jameis, and whenever I do anything with sports, whether I'm in a fantasy league or I'm betting a game or I'm just watching, to me it's always about the upside. Like, who's got the upside? Who's got the better chance to be here? And I'm telling you, when you watch Jameis, he is a textbook of how to set up. Like, he has got a beautiful setup and delivery. He's got a rocket for an arm. Jameis is, he's long. He's a prototypical quarterback. You just have, and he throws a deep ball at an elite level. You just have to get him to do the simple stuff.
It's decision making. It's always been that.
Always been that. And he's not the most accurate. Of course, for those of us in New Orleans the last 10 years, we've been watching Drew Brees. And anybody's going to fail that test.
I agree.
So he's not quite as accurate, but he's accurate enough. He just has to learn. And it's not so much it's the make a decision. It's like, at that beat, throw it. If you don't have it, throw it away. Don't run around. Don't try to extend the play. Yes, sometimes you're going to make a big play, but more often than not, and we saw it last year, bad things are going to happen. That's how he got hurt running the ball. This team, Now, granted, last year he had to with the weapons.
Right.
This team, the weapons should be good enough. If it's not there, live to play another day.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, watching him throughout his career, if he's not on a solid platform, mechanic-wise, that's where his
yeah, no
accuracy is
doubt.
off.
No, it's when he's trying to do too much.
Right, no doubt about it. We'll do one more, and then we're going to move on to the college game. Talk about this defense and how good you think they can be this year.
Well, in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers now Aaron Rodgers is learning a whole new set of receivers. He lost Devontae Adams, so at least part of it. The storyline in Green Bay was our receivers are terrible and don't know what they're doing. The story in New Orleans was the Saints secondary did an unbelievable job against Green Bay, and probably half of both is true. Marshawn Lattimore was unbelievable in Green Bay. He's had kind of a quiet camp. He's gotten a bunch of veterans' days off because you're looking at other corners.
Right.
Lattimore has been great. Paulson Adebo's been the player of camp, has flashed in a big way, and he doesn't look like a second-year, third-round draft pick. He looks like a guy who, if he plays like he has in camp, is going to be a Pro Bowler. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is elite in his role. And I do think you can use him in some ways in passing situations the way you would use the second linebacker. I think he can do some of that, even though he's small. He's such a chaos maker. And I like the idea of Matthew and Marcus May together at safety. We haven't seen the reality of the two of them together very much. But I love the idea. Look, with Marcus Williams, he was your center fielder.
That's it.
Now you got two guys that you can put them both on the line. You can disguise things more. Tyrann Mathieu, for his size, is one of the freaks of the last 20 years. For the chaos he causes at the line of scrimmage, for a guy who's smaller than me, is crazy. And Marcus May is a good player. I think that's the one question mark on defense. I don't know what you're
How
getting
about Justin Evans? Do you think he makes the team?
I think he makes the team.
He's got the best range back there.
Yeah, but I don't think he plays much.
Right.
I mean, look, when he's made big plays, it's been against Ian Book.
Okay.
It has not been you know what I mean?
Right,
like, he's made the plays he needs to make a team.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Right. But I don't think he's fitting in. Because, look, I think Bradley Roby's had a really good camp, and I don't know how he gets on the field.
Right.
And P.J. Williams, who, I think he gets dogged too much. And P.J. Williams is a good player. Played a lot of years in New Orleans. I don't see a way he gets on the field.
He can play multiple positions.
That secondary is deep.
Right.
I mean, the first five, I think, potentially terrific. Still questions about the safeties. But then those two behind him, Alontae Taylor, we haven't seen much of him lately. He's been out. Certainly showed flashes of being a good player. I think you go 8 deep in the secondary of guys you'd feel okay about playing. That's the strength of the team, is that secondary.
And of course, we have to go to break, but let's not discount what Lutz and Gillick can bring to the table as well.
Yeah, having Will Lutz back. That 59-yarder was the single biggest thing in the preseason game. And I said this a bunch of times on TV. TV didn't do justice because TV takes that angle from behind the kicker or in front of the kicker between the goalposts, so you don't see the velocity. That ball exploded off his foot. The velocity of the kick was unreal. I mean, I compared it Monday night to like an Aaron Judge missile coming off the bat. Like it exploded off his foot in a way that's like, okay, Will Lutz is good.
But it looked like it could have been good from 65 as well.
No question about it. But anyone worrying about Will Lutz, just let me show you this again. Don't worry about that.
Doug Mouton, sports director at WLAE-TV, is our guest. We take a break. We come back. LSU Tulane Pelicans on tap. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference. Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Doug Mouton, Sports Director at WLAE-TV, is our guest. We shift gears to the collegiate game. LSU up first. Quarterback. Big question mark.
Yeah, well, first of all, everything's a question mark with LSU.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we have ever seen a level of unknown like this about LSU. Look, I've gone back and forth with the quarterback. Honestly, I never thought Miles Brennan was in the race, and obviously never thought Jamie Howard was in the race.
Sure.
Jamie Howard?
Walker.
Right. Walker Howard. Still Jamie Howard to me.
Right, and all of us.
Look, I started out thinking it was going to be Jaden Daniels. Then I went to Nussmeier. Maybe I'm going back to Daniels. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I just don't know. I will say this. The 1 year that you get a pass is year one. You know, if somehow he goes 7-5, that's okay this year. That's never going to be okay again.
Right.
So maybe you go with the guy with the biggest upside, which I think would be Nussmeier, long term. Nussmeier's got a gun. The ball jumps off his arm. I mean, he's got a lot of growing to do. And we don't really know about Jaden Daniels. I mean, we really don't. The SEC is different than the Pac-10.
Absolutely.
I mean, in the SEC, you can't outrun a defensive. You can't outrun any linebacker.
Right, that's right.
And you might, like, when Mason Smith or B.J. Ojolari are chasing you, you can't outrun those defensive linemen, and that's something we don't know about him. Like, how good is his athleticism at the SEC level? And I'm not sure. Yeah, how ready is Garrett Nussmeier? I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. And actually, the one practice recently that they let everyone let the media in to watch the whole practice was last Wednesday. I was in Green Bay with the Saints, so I didn't get a chance to see it. So I feel like I'm a little behind on that. But I don't know from what I've seen in those two guys who the best choice is. I do think we're going to see both of them,
Me too.
especially in the first few games. And I will say this, too. If you look at LSU's schedule, the first 8 games before Alabama are all winnable.
Absolutely.
Now, I will say 6 of them are losable, but all 8 are winnable. And look, Brian Kelly acknowledged this a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was maybe his most honest answer. He was just asked about the level of unknown. And if he's dealt with this before, and he almost said he's never dealt with anything like this before, in the sense that he said, you can almost you'll say as a coach, we're not penciling in starters yet. But the fact is, you're penciling in a whole bunch of starters. At LSU, you really aren't. Like, until now, like, they're starting to get names down now. But they started camp with so much unknown. But I will say this, too. They've got top-end talent. Like I mentioned, Ojolari, Keyshawn Booty, Mason Smith, who has a chance to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Right? Those are 3 first-round draft picks. Bona fide, no doubt, first-round draft picks that you start with. So, sure, you got a lot of unknown, but I think the strength of LSU's team is that defensive line, and that's a good place to start. Like, that's a really good strength if you're going to start somewhere.
And I'm with you, Doug. This is a foundation year.
No doubt.
I mean, the LSU fans have to be patient here. This guy walks in, half the team is gone. You got to go to the transfer portal. You're trying to be able to catch up on 2022 class. At the same time, you're trying to get in on the 23 class. Look, he's done a great job on 23. He did a great job in the transfer portal. My question mark is the secondary, are they SEC ready?
Well, I don't know. Who knows?
We don't know that.
Well, you know when we'll know that? When they play Mississippi State.
No doubt.
I'll tell you one guy I love is Joe Fouché. Who was a kid I did a story on at McDonough 35. I did a story with him when he loved him then. I went to Arkansas. I think he's a player. Brian Kelly said this past week he thinks secondary has been his most surprisingly pleasant surprise. But
he had to piecemeal it.
completely piecemeal it.
Right.
But we will find out.
Right.
Mississippi State's a good test because LSU should have more talent than Mississippi State. But you saw what Mississippi State did a couple of years ago.
Right.
They're going to see 70 passes, and you know what? At that point, we're going to know how ready the secondary is.
I think their linebackers are good. Perkins is going to come on and play for them eventually.
Yes, and the D-line is legit.
It is elite.
I mean, Ali Gay is the third best guy, and he's at worst a second-round draft pick.
Offensive line is a question mark, but I like what he did. He cross-trained all these guys to try to find out what he had. He's going to go with the best 5.
And look, offensive line was the Achilles heel the last 2 years.
Doubt.
It was without question. Look, the defense was terrible.
Right.
I get that. But the offensive line gave him no chance. I mean, literally gave him no chance. You got to get better there. It is Brian Kelly's traditionally what's been his strength.
No doubt.
We'll find out. But again, anyone who claims they know is lying because it's a guess.
Yes.
Is the offensive line ready? Is the secondary ready? All I know is Booty and the defensive line. I feel good about those parts.
I think the wide receiver room is
the wide receiver room. I agree. That's one thing Louisiana.
And I think Mason Taylor could be really a really good tight end for them.
No question.
Based on everything we've heard.
I think the weapons should be fine.
Now running back. We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Now,
they're raving about Noah Cain.
Noah Cain, hopefully. And look, he's a physical guy.
Yeah.
But again, he's just coming off an injury. What about the John Emery situation? Do you think it's a little bit of an overkill by
it sure seems
NCAA?
like it. Look, I mean, we don't know the details.
Right.
It sure seems like it. And it struck me as unusual in a weird way.
To go into the next season.
Well, what struck me was Brian Kelly not talking about John Emery. John Emery is a special talent. And in theory, if he's in that room all season, he's by far your most talented guy. There should not be a debate. And from the beginning of camp, when asked about running backs, Brian Kelly wasn't mentioning John Emery. So I think Brian Kelly saw the 2-game suspension coming. And I hate to say it this way because I believe in John Emery as a player. I don't know the NCAA rules or how it works. I'll believe he's going to play when I see him in uniform and they say he's playing. So,
but everything we heard, again, this is rumor, okay? Kelly said he's done everything he needs to do for football.
Correct, for football.
For football.
But he made it a point to say for football.
Right, but he said, I can't talk about academics.
Everything about how he said it leads me to believe, okay, sounds like this thing isn't over yet.
Right. So
that's what I read into it. I don't know if it's over.
We've heard that academically he's up to what he needs in terms of standards, but we don't know.
And Brian Kelly wasn't willing to say
he wasn't going to. And he can't.
And
he just, by law, he cannot. When you look at the possible record for this team, I don't know. We know that a lot of LSU fans are going to go a little bit over the top, but what is realistic?
Yeah, that's funny because I asked that exact same question to Wilson Alexander, who covers him every day with The Advocate. He said 8 wins is a nice place to put a realistic, maybe even slightly optimistic, realistic bet. And I think that's about right. I think 8 would be an awesome season. If you could do better than 8, then you're nominating this guy for Coach of the Year. And if it's 7, you live with that, and it's okay. And I do think it depends. Look, if you can win more with Jaden Daniels now or win more later with Garrett Nussmeier now, like, who do you play? I mean, I would say play Nussmeier now, take your lumps this year, and if he's the bigger upside, get him ready for next year when you're going to have a chance to make a run.
You got some 5 stars in the tunnel here, too.
And no question.
Okay? I mean, there's no guarantee even for Nussmeier next year if he's a starter here.
No, that's a good point.
With Walker Howard coming, the kid out of Baton Rouge that they just signed.
Right.
So, I mean, again, that's a good thing.
I like Nussmeier, and I like Nussmeier's upside. I like rolling the dice with Nussmeier, but that's me. But look, the SEC, and maybe this year more so than the last decade, is really a jumble beyond Alabama and Georgia and Texas A&M. And so all those other teams, will Arkansas, are they really ready to step forward? Is Ole Miss really better than LSU? Like, from a talent standpoint, like Auburn, what does Auburn have? Florida's completely starting over again. Like, all these teams are in this middle pack with LSU. So it's a whole slate of games that you can win them all, lose them all, or more likely win some.
But you kind of feel
some.
Comfortable with the guy that you picked as your head coach.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
If
you're asking about this year, about long term.
Long term, and even this year. I mean, again,
I love this guy to write the ship.
Me too. I do.
I just don't know. Look, the transfer portal changed everything in college football, and then you bring a new coach into the SEC. He is literally dealing with more unknown and more turnover than maybe any coach in the last, and all new, I'm sure Billy Napier's dealing with it in Florida too, but the new coaches this year are dealing with more unknown than a new coach would have 5 years ago.
No doubt about it.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
And so managing all that and making that work, I don't know. I mean, look, I think you do have the right guy. I think you've got a grown-up in the room who's a smart, controlled
as close
guy.
to Saban as you could have got.
And yeah, I like everything about it. I just don't know. And look, honestly, from my standpoint, I think that's what makes the season so much fun.
Me too.
Is that I don't know.
Right. Let's shift to Tulane. Fritz has said pretty much throughout the camp he's pleased with what's going on. He thinks the team's play has been disciplined. He thinks the offensive line is performing much better. Wide receiver cores are deeper. He's obviously deep at running back. He likes what is happening at quarterback as well. And he said that he likes to play his defense thus far. That sounds pretty rosy going in after a 2-10 season. What are your thoughts on the Green?
Well, I think the first biggest thing for Tulane is the schedule. The schedule has gotten easier.
Oh, well, you're not playing top 5 teams.
Correct. Now it's going to get even easier once Cincinnati and company leaves the American.
That's when you should be winning the conference.
That's when Tulane's really has a chance to move forward. Let me say this, and I say this every time I talk about Tulane, is I love Willie Fritz, and I love the job that he's done, and I think quietly, even by American Athletic Conference standards, he's had 3 straight good recruiting classes. Not great, not Cincinnati level, but middle of the pack, even by the current 8 American Athletic Conference standards. And last year, just everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong from Oklahoma on down. I absolutely think this is a bowl team again. I think they're a 6-6 team, maybe 7-5. I don't think they're ready just because the conference is still so hard to make a big leap. The running back room to me is the strongest thing.
I agree.
I mean, Tulane, the running backs, and Sean Clayton was one of my favorite players in Louisiana high school his senior year. A great high school running back that I thought, I couldn't believe Alabama wasn't on him that good. And I think we're going to see that, and he's going to have, with Tyjae Spears, he's going to have a hard time getting time. Tyjae Spears is a guy at Ponchatoula who I love. I love the local kids. I love how Willie Fritz has gotten it done. I still think the schedule's hard. I still think they're not quite there yet. They definitely needed to upgrade at wide receiver, and I think they have. I mean, look, we'll see. I mean, you talked before about practicing and you watch yourself against your own guys. It's hard to make great evaluations. It really is. Now, I can make an evaluation of the Saints when I see somebody working against Cam Jordan. But at Tulane, I don't know. So I don't know if you trust what you see or not. I do. I like the talent. I like Willie Fritz. Obviously, I like the quarterback. Very experienced now. I do see them being better. I see them starting 2-0, which I love, and going to Kansas State in the 3rd week. And I mean, I like Kansas State. I don't know if they get through that one, but I think this team is better, and I think you're going to see it better. I think they're going to get back to a bowl game. But yes, then I think you legitimately compete for conference championships beginning. Once Cincinnati,
in every sport.
In every sport. In every sport.
In every sport.
Now, in some sports, you should be competing for conference championships now, like baseball. But football, I do think you're competing. Look, competing against Cincinnati, Tulane was going to have an uphill battle every year, and against Memphis, and against some others. I like the coach. I like where they're going. I do see a significant step forward this year, and then the bigger step coming once the conference becomes winnable.
On defense, again, you're replacing some guys that are in the NFL. You're replacing a guy when Johnson then went to Oklahoma. That's hard to replace. I'll be interested to see again how that defensive line plays. They look like they're pretty good at linebacker. They believe they've upgraded at cornerback in the defensive backfield, but up front, and that's the key.
No doubt.
What's your offensive line going to look like? What's your defensive line is going to look like? Fritz seems to think he's got a pretty good offensive line based on what he said thus far. Defensively, you got to replace some really good players.
Look, it's the one thing you can't get recruiting the New Orleans area or linemen.
It's true.
Because we do produce elite linemen. Look, Mason Smith's a perfect example, but they're few of them.
They're not going to Tulane.
Whereas wide receivers and DBs, you can get
running backs.
You can get our second or third level high school players, and they're going to be terrific college players. And I do think they're going to be fine in the skill position areas. It all comes to how good they play up front. I mean, that's the way it's always been. And we'll see. I like a lot of what they have. I still think they're going to be overmatched against the Cincinnatis of this conference. But again, I like them to be better.
And I like what Fritz has done in terms of the transfer portal, giving New Orleans high schoolers a second chance to come home.
Yeah.
You know, because
I mentioned Ashad Clayton. I think Ashad Clayton
I'm telling you,
has a chance.
Look at Lawrence Keys.
And Lawrence Keys, who was with high school with Joe Fouché, when I went and did the story at McDonough 35, Wayne Reese was one of my favorite high school coaches of all time.
Yeah.
So whenever I needed, he was one of my go-to guys. If I had high school questions, I'd call Wayne and said, Wayne, is this true? Wayne was one of the class acts in Louisiana of all time. Anyway, I went and did a story with the two of them.
Yes.
And Lawrence Keys went to Notre Dame, an incredibly impressive young man. And to me, he's a perfect example of a local guy you can get at a skill position that's good enough to play at Notre Dame, but Tulane's going to have.
He's going to excel,
and I think he's going to be a difference maker.
I also like the fact that Ibieta coming back, that he didn't transfer out. Look, anything can happen to Pratt. That they've also got another quarterback, their third-string quarterback they really like as a young player. They just lost one of the top recruits in the nation, who again ultimately, they basically decided to go elsewhere after again he started to get a lot of recruiters coming after him. But look, I think they're going to have a winning season, and I think it's going to be a bowl game.
Yeah, good. I would agree with that. I think 7-5 is the bar that you shoot for.
Me too.
I think that's where you are. And if it's 6-6, you're okay with that. If you can win more than 7, you've had a spectacular year, and you have really put yourself in a position to be a force beginning next year.
I'm with you. Let's talk Pels. And I'm an NBA nut, always have been. Look forward to the Pels.
They made that challenging, though, at times in the last decade.
They made it challenging going back when the Jazz were here.
I know.
We just went for Maravich, right?
I
mean, come on. But let's talk about this team. First of all, the schedule. Opening up at the Nets. We know that, again, Durant couldn't get his trade, so he's back. Opening up at Utah at home. And then 8 of the first 11 games on the road. New Orleans has a 6-game homestand in November. Also, 10 of the final 17 are at home. 5 of the final 6 are at home. 12 back-to-backs, which is down 3 from last year, if I'm right. And then 18.
And the NBA is trying to cut those down as much as possible.
And they need to. 18 nationally televised games. And look, we may see toward the end of the season, if they're playing well, even more.
And that 18 is fuzzy because we also saw last year when they were going bad, they dropped some.
They dropped them,
Yeah, so 18 for now.
What's your gut?
Well, look, my gut is if you're going to put an expectation, you're talking about maybe the 5 seed in the West. I think this team is going to be legit. The team that I saw at the end of the season could play with Phoenix. Not quite as good as Phoenix, but they played with Phoenix, and they're all young. They should all get better. I can't say enough about the job Willie Green did, just as a calming, motivating, teaching force. Just Willie Green should have gotten more play for an NBA coach of the year. Wasn't going to just because of the way it played out. I get that. Your record wasn't. You're under 500. That's not going to happen. I understand the reality of that.
But you didn't have the best player on your team.
Didn't have the best player on your team. Look, that team was so much fun that Zion Williamson, I will say this, he came here to watch that playoff run. When I say the playoff run, I mean from maybe the last 10 or 15 games of the year through the playoff run, and was so captivated by what he saw and what he felt in the locker room, and the whole city of New Orleans felt that. The crowd felt it. We all felt that. Zion felt that. I think that is 100% the biggest reason he's coming back. I think if not for that run, I don't know how things would have played out. And I wouldn't be surprised if it had played out the other way. I'm not signing an extension or problems. But he wanted to be part of this. And you have got a team now that people want to be part of. You got 14 guys under contract. Free agency is, we don't need anybody. We're, like good. The guy in Boo-Ray who says, I'll play these. Like, that's scary. Like, so they're going to play the ones they got. Now, does that mean they're a championship team now? Absolutely not. Okay, they're not. Don't put the bar there. It takes years to build up to that. I want to say it was Steph Curry's 7th year in the NBA. You got to grow as a team. You got to get there. There's a learning and a growing process. I love everything about how they grew last year. I love how Brandon Ingram, to me, and he gets lost in it because the rookie class was so good. His maturation, his leadership, like taking over as a leader on this team. Brandon Ingram was spectacular last year.
It's the reason why they didn't want to trade him for Kevin Durant.
Correct. I don't see any reason he shouldn't be better. Honestly, I wanted no part of the Durant thing.
Me too.
I would not mess.
And that's crazy to say, right?
Crazy to say. Well, look, David Griffin talked the last day. Okay, they lost on a Thursday. So on that was the end of the season. On Friday, the Pelicans do their exit interview, right? So you interview every player. So literally, it's like 3 hours of interviews, where because it's so much interview, because they're all leaving.
Yeah.
Like a lot of what gets said gets lost, and Zion talked for the first time. So Zion became the headline. The other 12 people talking, we didn't hear from a lot, just because that was the message, and then by a week later, it's old news. But one of the really interesting things that David Griffin said in there that stuck with me was at the trade deadline, he got offers for Billy Hernan-Gomez, who was a non-rotational player in the playoffs, meaning he didn't play 1 minute in the playoffs. He was not in your rotation in the playoffs. They got trade offers for him, and Griffin wouldn't trade Hernan-Gomez because he didn't want to mess with the chemistry of that locker room. He'd been around the NBA long enough to know that what they had was special enough that he's not trading his 13th guy. You know, I mean, think about that.
It's true, though.
And it was true. And that to me said more than anything they said. And that to me. So even when the Kevin Durant was happening, when people were reporting New Orleans, I honestly never really believed it, because I thought, why the heck would you not trade Willie Hernan-Gomez, who's not even playing anymore for you, once Larry Nance came? Why would you not trade him? But then you're going to get Kevin Durant in here to blow the whole thing up? That didn't make any sense to me. So during the Kevin Durant thing, I kept going back to that one quote about Billy Hernan-Gomez, which never made anybody's newscast, never got talked about. But that quote to me...
That's the first I'm hearing it, I got to tell you right now.
That quote to me said so much about what he knew he had put together. And that now you got the right coach, you got the right chemistry, you've got players who can do it all. You got big guys, you got shooters, you got ball handlers, especially when you add Zion in the mix. And a guy like Devontae Graham, who they signed to be a catch-and-shoot guy to play with Zion.
The space is going to be there now.
Never got to play with Zion. If you watch him just catch and shoot, you don't want him creating. You want him catching and shooting, and he can do that at an elite level, and now he'll get a chance to with Zion, I think. I don't think they're moving him. And now you get a chance to see this team and what they can do. I never thought they were players for Kevin Durant, even though some people in the New Orleans media argue with me when I say that.
I didn't either. I do want to ask you this, though. We got about 90 seconds. Now, you say it's a crazy question. How do you make Zion fit? But how do you make Zion fit?
Oh, I think Zion fits because great players fit. I think they just fit. I think you run the ball through him, and then you play two different teams. When he's in the lineup, you're playing him in the post, and either he's taking it, or if they overplay him, he's kicking it out to your shooters, and then you play differently when he's not in. When he's not in, then C.J. McCollum's running the offense. C.J. McCollum can be a catch-and-shoot guy. That's what he was at Portland. Like, he can do that, too.
What about defensively?
Well, defensively, defensively you have to play around what you have. But obviously, Herb Jones makes you good defensively to start with. Alvarado plays good defense. I think everyone can play defense. You have some liabilities if you have Ingram and Zion and Devontae Graham on the court at the same time. You just have to work around it. But Herb Jones is an elite defensive player, and you start with one of the best defensive players in basketball, and then you build around that. And that's why they drafted Dyson Daniels, because he has a chance to be an elite defensive player.
And I think that's what they were looking for as well.
No question.
No doubt.
And a catch and shoot.
Yes. So, and look, they got a great staff as well, especially when you start talking.
All the way down.
And you feel good about it. I feel good about this team.
I do too.
As well, no doubt. Doug, thanks for being with us. One more time, tell the folks about Fourth Down.
Fourth Down on 4 every Sunday night.
And of course,
got an LSU special on Thursday the 1st, and Fourth Down Friday starts on Friday the 2nd.
There you go.
It's a busy football season like every year, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Doug Mouton, WLAE-TV sports director over there. We always appreciate him joining us on the program. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Again, so many ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code up on your screen. Just take your phone, click on it. It'll take you to WLAE-TV YouTube page or to my website. And, of course, there's so many rebroadcasts, too many to say on this program right now. But, again, go check it out if you missed our program today. You catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM Nash Icon. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. The Anchor app is our home base for our podcast, but we're on all podcasting platforms. And, of course, want to thank the the folks here at WLAE-TV, and of course our fine sponsors, our underwriters that make this show possible. Please support our underwriters, and of course our friends here at WLE, the staff that does a great job for us. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Doug Mouton, I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.